What's up, everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if cold Rinnegan Naruto neglected by family? If you enjoy this what if, then please like, share, and do comment.
Konoha burned beneath a sky torn open by fire. The village that had stood for generations now lay fractured, streets split by claw marks, rooftops crushed beneath impossible weight, shinobi bodies scattered where courage had failed against inevitability. Above it all loomed a colossal shadow, the nine-tailed fox, its massive form cutting across the flames like a living calamity. Each movement of its tail shattered what little remained standing. Its eyes, once wild with fury, were fixed on a lone toad standing defiantly amid the chaos. Gamabunta's massive frame anchored itself against the cracked earth, smoke curling around his blue houri as he gripped his blade. Perched atop his head stood a man whose presence cut through the terror like a blade through fog. Minato Namikaze did not look away. The white cloak at his back fluttered violently, kanji darkened by ash and blood. In his arms, wrapped carefully despite the carnage, was a newborn child, small, warm, unaware of the fate being carved into the world around him. Minato's grip tightened just enough to reassure himself the baby was still there. Still alive. Hold it steady, Minato said quietly, his voice calm in a place where calm had no right to exist. I won't need long. Gamabunta glanced back, one eye narrowing. You're certain about this path, kid? There's no walking back from what you're about to do. Minato didn't hesitate. There never was. The toad exhaled smoke slowly. You're talking about summoning that thing. Yes. A pause followed, heavy, final. TCH. You humans are insane. Gamabunta shifted his stance. Fine. Do it. Minato closed his eyes for half a breath, then began weaving signs, precise, complex, forbidden. Chakra twisted around him, warping the air itself. Before the technique could complete, the nine tails shuddered. Its roar cut off mid-thunder. The crimson glow in its eyes flickered, then fractured, before fading entirely. The beast staggered, claws digging into the ruined earth as confusion washed across its ancient features. For the first time that night, the fox saw. It looked down at Minato. At the child. Understanding struck like a blade. So, you choose this, the fox rumbled, its voice stripped of mockery, weighed down by something older than hatred. You would chain a newborn to a curse, and call it hope. Minato met its gaze evenly. I choose survival. For him, for the village, and, for reasons you already know, for what comes next. The fox's lips pulled back, not in a snarl, but something close to grim approval. Then be quick, Hokage. My mind is clearing, but not for long. Minato nodded once. Gamabunta, he said without looking away, when this is over, take my son. Deliver him to Sarutobi. He'll know what must be done. The toad's jaw tightened. And you? Minato didn't answer. Instead, he thought of red hair like fire in sunlight. Of laughter that filled rooms. Of a strength that had always surpassed his own. Kushina, forgive me. Elsewhere, Namikaze residence. Kushina Uzumaki was dying. She felt it in every breath, every faltering beat of her heart. The absence inside her was a wound no medicine could close. The fox was gone, and with it, the strength that had once anchored her life. But her hands did not tremble. Not now. She moved through the silent house with purpose, sealing scrolls scattered across tables, ink still wet with formulas far older than the village itself. Her chakra was thin, frayed, but it answered her call. A final measure. A mother's defiance. She paused before a framed photograph, fingers brushing the glass. The past stared back at her, smiles untouched by fate, by loss. She swallowed hard and turned the frame aside, revealing a blood-sealed compartment hidden behind the wall. Pain flared as she bit her thumb. Blood traced the seal. The safe opened. From within, she retrieved a small vial, dark, heavy with meaning. I'm sorry, she whispered, unsure who she was apologizing to. Ancestors, spirits, or the child she was about to condemn to a destiny none should bear alone. Straightening, Kushina turned toward the door. There's still time, she told herself. Even if it cost everything. Back at the ruins, the air split open behind Minato. A presence colder than death itself manifested, towering, robed, inhuman. The Shinigami emerged without ceremony, its grotesque face twisted in eternal hunger, its blade gleaming with inevitability. Minato did not flinch. I ask for your power, he said, voice steady despite the terror pressing down on his soul. To divide a monster, and bind its fate to mine. The Shinigami's grin widened. You know the price. I do. The ritual began. The fox did not resist. As chakra tore free and seals burned themselves into flesh and soul, the beast spoke one final time, its voice echoing not in the air but in promise. I will remember this night, human, it vowed. And when the child stands at the crossroads you have prepared, I will tell him who truly moved the world from the shadows. Minato's eyes widened, just slightly. So you sensed it too. The ceiling completed in a blinding flash. When the light faded, the fox was gone. The village was silent. Minato sagged, strength draining faster than he could fight. He looked down at his son, at the seal etched into soft skin, pulsing faintly. Naruto, he breathed. Live. Prove this choice mattered. His vision dimmed. As Gamabunta carefully lifted the child from his arms, Minato forced one last breath. Tell Jiraiya, he murmured. The enemy isn't dead. He's waiting. The one who lost his light, but not his ambition. The toad stiffened. You sure know how to leave a mess behind, kid. Minato smiled faintly. Then his eyes closed. Far away, deep beneath the roots of forgotten stone, a single Sharingan opened in the dark. And something smiled. Gamabunta did not linger. The fires below were dying, smothered by ash and silence, but grief had a way of slowing even the strongest. The great toad forced himself forward, muscles tensing as he leapt across shattered rooftops. Wind tore at his haori, yet the small bundle resting against his head never shifted. And so passes the Yondaime Hokage, Gamabunta thought, jaw tightening. You were one hell of a summoner, Gaki. His gaze dropped, just slightly, to the infant wrapped in cloth and fate. Uzumaki Naruto, he murmured. Yeah, I'll remember you. With that, the toad vanished into smoke, carrying the last legacy of the fourth toward a village that no longer knew how to protect its own. Inside the seal, darkness was not empty. It breathed. Iron bars stretched into nothingness, ancient and absolute, humming with power layered carefully, deliberately, by hands that understood both monsters and men. Behind those bars, the nine tails sat in silence, its massive form coiled, tails shifting lazily through shadow. Memories flickered around it, not its own. A man in white, a woman with hair like wildfire, a child born into screaming light. The fox's eyes narrowed. So you left echoes behind, Hokage, it rumbled quietly, sifting through the fragments Minato had woven into the seal. Knowledge, intent, warnings, and something else, something old. Its attention snapped inward as a ripple surged through the infant's chakra network, raw, unfamiliar, but unmistakable. That presence, the fox muttered. So the blood remembers. A low chuckle rolled through the cavern. You carry more than me, brat. Far more. Its lips curled into a knowing grin. Very well. Sleep, then. Grow. The fox lowered its massive head. And froze. A spike of chakra tore through the seal, sharp and defiant, flaring with a signature the fox knew intimately. Kushina? It growled, eyes widening. The chakra twisted, ancient formulas brushing against the bars without touching them. Not an attack, a declaration. Realization dawned. Huh? You reckless woman, the fox muttered, amusement bleeding into something almost respectful. So you dared to touch that jutsu. Its gaze shifted, searching the layers of the seal. What it found made its laughter die. Unexpected indeed. Training ground 44, earlier. The forest loomed like a graveyard of roots and shadow. Kushina Uzumaki stood at its edge, breathing hard, sweat and blood streaking her skin. The ground beneath her feet was carved with seals, complex, interlocking, drawn by a hand that refused to accept inevitability. She felt it then, the severing, Minato's chakra, fading. Her knees nearly buckled, but she did not fall. One tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek before she wiped it away with shaking fingers. Of course you finished it first, she whispered. Always faster than me. Her hands moved, signs blurred together, chakra surging from reserves that should not have existed anymore. The air thickened, pressure building until the forest itself seemed to recoil. Kachiyose no jutsu, Kushina rasped. Edo tensai. The ground split. A coffin rose from the earth, wood cracking as it forced its way into the open air. The lid slid forward and fell away with a dull thud. A figure stepped out. They looked around slowly, eyes adjusting, then focused on Kushina with gentle confusion. Oni-chan? the figure asked softly. Was that you? Kushina laughed, a broken, breathless sound. Yeah, sorry about the rough summoning. Understanding dawned quickly. The fox? Gone, Kushina said, and sealed again, but not without a price. She did not waste time. She explained everything, the village, Minato's choice, the weight that would fall onto a child too small to understand hatred. Her voice shook only once. I won't be there, she finished quietly. And I won't pretend the village will be kind. Silence followed. Then the figure smiled. Then let me help, they said without hesitation. If I can stand between him and that loneliness, even later, that's enough. Kushina pressed her lips together, eyes burning. You'll be bound. Frozen. Years will pass before you even wake properly. I know, they replied. 6 years is nothing. I'll wait. A shaky laugh escaped her. You always were stubborn. She summoned a messenger toad, sending a scroll toward the Hokage tower, then turned back, gathering the last of her chakra into a seal that glowed faintly in her hands. Naruto, she thought as she pressed the mark forward. Ka-chan is sorry. But remember, your name means never giving up. The seal sank into place. The forest fell silent. Hokage Tower, hours later. Sarutobi Hiruzen felt older than he ever had. The office smelled of smoke and ink, of decisions that would scar generations. He sat behind the desk, the small bundle before him impossibly fragile against the weight of what it contained. Minato's son. The village's secret. You selfish fool, Hiruzen thought bitterly. Leaving this mess behind, his gaze softened as Naruto stirred. I hope you're stronger than we were. A blur of movement announced an ANBU's arrival. A woman in a wolf mask knelt smoothly, silver hair escaping its confines. Hokage-sama, she reported. The council is assembled, and Kushina's body was found near Training Ground 44. Hiruzen closed his eyes briefly. She hesitated, then noticed the child. Her posture shifted, something unguarded slipping through the mask. That's him, she said quietly. Sensei's son. Hi, Hiruzen replied. Uzumaki Naruto. She removed her mask, revealing a young face marked by exhaustion and resolve far beyond her years. No joy touched her expression, only fierce concern. What happens to him now? She asked. Hiruzen sighed. That depends on how cruel the village chooses to be. The council chamber. The doors opened. Voices died. Sarutobi entered, Naruto cradled in his arms, Anbu shadows flanking him. The room, divided by politics, fear, and old grudges, held its breath. The Yondaime Hokage is dead, Hiruzen began, voice steady despite the storm gathering. He gave his life to stop the Nine Tails. Murmurs rippled. He sealed the beast, Hiruzen continued, into this child. Chaos erupted. Fear turned to rage in an instant. Accusations flew. Demands for blood echoed off stone walls. Killing intent flooded the room, cold, lethal, silencing even the loudest voices as shinobi hands drifted toward weapons. Hiyashi Hyuga spoke next, calm and precise. Then this child is not the demon, but its prison. Hiruzen inclined his head. Correct. Another voice screeched, shrill and indignant, protesting authority and decision alike. But it was drowned out by a single lazy drawl. Nara Shikaku leaned back, eyes half-lidded. With all due respect, he said, arguing leadership right now is troublesome. The options are obvious and limited. He listed them calmly. By the time he finished, no one argued. Hiruzen looked down at Naruto once more. Outside the chamber, unseen and unheard, seals older than the village itself began to shift. And somewhere deep within the darkness of a child's soul, something stirred. Sukuna's outrage simmered, sharp and bitter, but even she understood when she had lost. With an irritated scoff, she dropped back into her seat, folding her arms tightly as if that alone could shield her pride. With the disruption settled, for now, Sarutobi turned his attention back to the Hyuga clan head. To answer your question, Hiyashi, the Hokage said evenly, yes. This child is the vessel restraining the Nine Tails. The room quieted. His name is Uzumaki Naruto. That single name caused several clan heads to stiffen. Hiyashi's pale gaze sharpened, the Byakugan not yet activated, but his scrutiny was no less intense. Beside him, Inuzuka Sume leaned forward slightly, nostrils flaring as if scent alone could reveal truth. Naruto slept through it all, unaware of the eyes measuring his worth. Sume was striking, wild and unapologetic, dark hair spiked like a predator's mane, crimson markings slashed across her cheeks. Her gaze lingered on the child longer than most. Blonde hair. Minato's face, she mused. But there's something else. That chakra, yeah, that's Kushina's pup. Sarutobi continued, unaware, or perhaps deliberately ignoring, the undercurrent of unspoken recognition. The Yondaime's final wish, he said, voice steady, was that this child be honored as a hero, not feared as a curse. The Shinobi Council absorbed the words in silence. Some nodded. Others simply accepted it as another burden they would shoulder. The civilians, however, whispered amongst themselves, fear breeding resentment far faster than understanding ever could. Sume broke the silence. Hokage-sama, she said, her tone respectful but firm. What becomes of the pup now? Sarutobi met her eyes. If I may, she added, the Inuzuka clan would take responsibility for him. A ripple passed through the room. Before Sarutobi could respond, Hiyashi spoke calmly. The Hyuga clan would also be willing to provide care. That alone raised eyebrows, but what followed raised suspicion. Uchiha Fugaku stepped forward, expression unreadable. Makoto would never forgive me if I didn't speak, he reasoned. And there's potential. The Uchiha clan extends the same offer, he said simply. Sarutobi's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Before he could respond, protests erupted from the civilian side. Claims of imbalance, favoritism, fear thinly veiled as concern. When the noise subsided, Sarutobi spoke with finality. No, the word echoed. To place Naruto within any single clan would destabilize the village, he continued. That is not a risk I will take. Tsune's jaw tightened, but she did not argue. Hiyashi inclined his head slightly. Fugaku leaned back, already withdrawing. That was when Danzo spoke. Hokage-sama, he said smoothly, cane tapping once against the floor. Perhaps the boy would be safest under my supervision. Properly trained, properly guided. The elders beside him nodded. Across the room, the shinobi stiffened. The Anbu present felt a chill crawl up their spines. Sarutobi's gaze hardened. No, Danzo, he said sharply. I will not turn a child into a tool. Naruto will be placed under village protection, in an orphanage. Danzo's visible eye narrowed, but he said nothing. Sarutobi rose slightly from his seat. And hear this clearly, he said, voice carrying killing intent strong enough to silence the room completely. Anyone who reveals this child's status as a Jinchuriki, to him or to others, will be executed. No one doubted him. The meeting was dismissed. The decree lasted less than a week. Secrets had a way of rotting from the inside, especially when fear was involved. For 4 years, Naruto lived quietly in the orphanage. The matron, a woman who had known Sarutobi in his youth, shielded him as best she could. She fed him, scolded him gently, and smiled at him like he mattered. Then she died. The woman who replaced her saw only a demon wearing a child's skin. Get out, she snarled one night, shoving him through the door. And don't come back. Naruto wandered the streets for weeks. When Anbu finally found him, dirty and half-starved, Kanako nearly lost control. It took 5 of them to hold her back as she shook with rage, eyes burning behind her mask. After that, Sarutobi intervened personally. Naruto was given a small apartment and a modest allowance. Money drawn quietly from accounts left behind by parents he did not remember. It didn't make life kinder. Shopkeepers turned him away. Prices tripled when they didn't. Only one place never closed its doors to him. Ichiraku Ramen. Even so, beatings came. Always in moments when attention lapsed. Always stopped just short of fatal by unseen protectors. Naruto learned early how to get back up. 7 years later, Konoha Apartments. Morning light crept through cracked blinds, painting thin golden lines across a cluttered room. Naruto slept through it. Today, something was different, but he didn't know why yet. When his eyes finally fluttered open, annoyance turned to excitement in an instant. Oh, a grin split his face. It's my birthday. He rolled out of bed, energy crackling through him. Inu Nichan said she'd come by. And Weasel Nissan too. Maybe Neko Nichan. He padded into the bathroom and turned on the shower, steam rising as hot water washed away sleep. And then, the dream returned. Flashes of battle. Crimson-haired warriors clashing steel in reverse. Wounds sealing, blood retreating into flesh. Blades dissolved into petals. Landscapes shifted, villages fell, civilizations crumbled. A city of impossible design lay in ruins. 13 figures stood at the front, white Haori billowing, battered but unbroken. An old man at their center absorbed them all, light folding inward, until his eyes change. Purple. Inhuman. Footsteps echoed. Clack, clack, clack. Naruto groaned, rubbing his face. Seriously, that guy again? A blond man stepped into view, wooden sandals announcing his arrival like a curse. Naruto didn't know his name. Didn't know why his chest tightened. Didn't know why the seal on his stomach burned. But somewhere deep within the darkness of his soul, iron bars trembled. And the fox began to laugh. The man in the striped hat tilted his head, wooden sandals tapping lazily against broken stone. His eyes, sharp despite the humor, flicked over the ruined skyline as if he were inspecting a poorly brewed experiment. Well, he drawled, lips quirking. If it isn't you, looks like you've been busy again. Nice hair, by the way. The orange-haired man turned sharply, irritation flashing across his face. This isn't the time, he snapped. Not for jokes. For once, the grin vanished. The stranger's posture shifted, loose movements snapping into something precise, dangerous. You're right, he said quietly. Then let's not waste it. They walked forward together, the world bending around them like paper soaked in ink. Naruto's perspective tore free again. He lay on cool stone beneath an open sky, incense smoke curling above him. A temple surrounded the clearing, ancient, worn smooth by centuries of prayer and blood. At its center lay an old man, white hair spread like frost, those same inhuman eyes staring up at nothing. That's him. Realization struck like lightning. Around the old man sat 9 beings, each monstrous and magnificent in their own way, tails swaying, forms radiating power that pressed against Naruto's chest until it hurt to breathe. A one-tailed creature shaped from shifting sand. A massive beast with horns and hooves crackling with energy. Creatures of flame, ink, mist, and storm. And there, the fox. The 9 tails sat among them, vast and terrible, yet silent. The old man raised himself with effort, voice carrying weight that bent the air. My children, he said, tone gentle but final, my time has reached its end. The beasts leaned closer. Soon I will fade from this world. Remember what you are. Remember why you exist. Hi, To-san, they answered in unison. Naruto's breath hitched. The vision shattered again. Fire. Ruin. Konoha burning beneath a screaming sky. A massive toad braced against destruction. A towering fox roared defiance. And between them, a blond man in white, clutching something small as light itself. A blinding flash, and the light vanished into a child. Naruto screamed. Inside the darkness, he stood in a forest clearing swallowed by shadow. The air vibrated with restrained power. A figure stepped forward. The same man from before his transformation, purple eyes fixed squarely on Naruto. You have seen fragments, the man said calmly. Not truth, not lies, pieces. Naruto clenched his fists. Then explain it. The man smiled sadly. Not yet. He reached out, not touching, but close enough for Naruto to feel the pull of something ancient and familiar. When the time comes, the man continued, you will understand who you are, what you carry, and why the world will try to break you for it. The forest began to fade. Wait, Naruto shouted. What do you mean? The man's smile was the last thing to disappear. Remember your name, he said softly. And choose it every day. Naruto jolted awake. Steam filled the bathroom as water pounded uselessly against his back. His heart raced, seal burning faintly beneath his skin. Again, he muttered. He shut off the water and dressed quickly, black shirt, red swirl, worn shorts. Familiar armor. Breakfast barely lasted a minute. He grabbed his jacket and bolted into the street, ignoring the shouts and curses that followed him like always. Today was his birthday. He wouldn't let them ruin it. Training Ground 7, Memorial Stone. Hitaki Kanako stood motionless before the stone, and bow armor dark against the morning light. Her gaze traced 3 names carved forever into cold rock. Namikaze Minato, Uchiha Obito, Nohara Rin. So much has changed, she thought bitterly. And none of it for the better. Her thoughts drifted to a small blond boy with stubborn smiles and bruises he pretended not to feel. They hate him for surviving, she continued silently. If you could see it, if you were here. A flash of anger twisted beneath her mask. You'd be furious. Footsteps, fast, careless, broke her thoughts. With Naruto. Inu Nichan. Naruto burst into the clearing, grin wide, blue eyes bright despite everything. For a moment, the world felt lighter. Kanako turned and froze. Something was wrong. The air around Naruto felt different, charged, unsettled, like the moment before a lightning strike. Before she could speak, the seal on Naruto's stomach flared violently. Deep beneath iron bars, ancient laughter echoed. The fox opened one eye. "Ah," it murmured. "So it begins." Flashback. That had been the first time Naruto had ever been held like that. Not dragged away, not pushed aside, not tolerated out of obligation. Held. The Hokage's hand on his shoulder had always been warm, but distant, heavy with responsibility. Kanako's hug had been different. It had shaken something loose inside him, something he hadn't known was missing. When she said she cared, when her voice cracked just a little, Naruto had felt it settle into his chest like an anchor. Someone would notice if he disappeared. Someone would care. That memory still clung to him as he broke into a run across Training Ground 7. "Hey, Inu Nichan," Naruto shouted, waving both arms as he ran. "How's it going?" Kanako turned just in time to see a blur of blonde enthusiasm barreling toward her. Beneath the wolf mask, her lips curved upward. "Hello, Naruto-kun," she replied warmly. "You seem energetic today." "I am," he grinned. "Do you know what today is?" She tapped her chin theatrically. Hokage Appreciation Day? Nope. Half-off day at my favorite bookstore? No. Oh, she said, feigning sudden realization. Then it must be your birthday. Yep. Kanako reached into her pouch and produced a neatly wrapped book, handing it over. Happy birthday, Naruto-kun. We'll get ramen later, but for now, why don't you start reading while we wait for the others? Yata. Naruto cheered. Thanks, Inu Nichan. He sprinted off toward a tree near the clearing and flopped down against it, already tearing into the wrapping. Kanako watched him for a moment, then relaxed and reached into her pouch again. Finally, she thought with barely contained excitement, that limited edition signed copy Jiraiya-sama sent. She froze. The book in her hands was not the one she expected. Her stomach dropped. "No," she muttered quietly. Her eyes flicked toward Naruto, then back to the cover she was holding. If I have this one, then Naruto has. She felt another familiar chakra signature approach. Oh no, Kanako thought grimly. Yugo's here, with Naruto and Yugao. Naruto was deeply focused, brow furrowed as he struggled through words that made very little sense. The pictures weren't helping. Hello, Naruto-kun. He looked up to see Yugao standing nearby, violet eyes calm and curious. Oh, hi, Neko Nichan, he smiled. I'm reading the book Inu Nichan got me. Oh? Yugao tilted her head. What kind of book? Naruto scratched his cheek. I don't really get it. Could you explain something? She crouched slightly, still smiling. What part? Naruto flipped a few pages, then read aloud slowly, carefully. It says, Chi-Chi moaned as Ichiro entered her. Yugao froze. Naruto looked up innocently. How do you enter someone? Silence. A dangerous, ominous silence. Naruto-kun, Yugao said very carefully, may I see the book? He handed it over without hesitation. One glance was enough. Her face went crimson. Veins pulsed dangerously at her temple. That idiot, she thought. She gave a 7-year-old this? Before Yugao could stand up and unleash her fury, a familiar voice rang out across the clearing. Neko-chan, Naruto-kun, I think I made a mistake. Kanako jogged over, hands raised defensively. I may have given Naruto the wrong book. Yugao slowly turned her head. I see. Naruto blinked. Oh, then can I have the one you meant to give me? Kanako quickly swapped the books. Naruto accepted the new one happily, then paused. But could you still explain the other book? He asked. I'm curious. Yugao wordlessly shoved the offending novel back into Kanako's hands. Kanako coughed. Well, the damage is done. She sighed, then knelt in front of Naruto. I suppose I should explain. Better he hears it from me than elsewhere. Yugao straightened, already retreating. Yes, I'll go check for Weasel. As she walked away, she muttered under her breath, I swear, if you corrupt him. Kanako cleared her throat and turned back to Naruto, smiling far too brightly. Now, Naruto, she began, voice unusually enthusiastic, what you read in that book is something adults do when they care about each other very, very much. Yugo's shoulders slumped in defeat. This is going to be a disaster. And far away, Deep beneath Konoha, behind iron bars etched into a child's soul, the nine-tailed fox listened. Its massive eyes opened fully. Ah, it rumbled, amused. So this is how it starts. The seal pulsed. Naruto's laughter echoed through the clearing. And something ancient began to stir. 30 minutes later, by the time the sun had shifted noticeably across the clearing, Naruto sat stiff-backed against the tree, face red enough to rival a ripe tomato. Every question he had asked, every single one, had been answered in painful, unforgettable detail. Kanako, meanwhile, had returned to her book with an air of deep satisfaction, legs crossed casually as she flipped pages as though she hadn't just detonated the innocence of a 7-year-old. Yugao had not recovered. She sat several meters away, knees hugged to her chest, a palpable aura of despair clinging to her like fog. She rocked back and forth slowly, muttering under her breath, "I've lost him. 7 years old, already corrupted. Stupid silver-haired." A soft thud interrupted her spiral. A figure dropped into the clearing with barely a sound. A calm voice said, "What exactly did I just walk into?" All three heads turned. Uchiha Itachi stood there, hands tucked into his sleeves, dark eyes flicking between Naruto's crimson face, Kanako's suspiciously relaxed posture, and Yugo's emotional collapse. And, he added carefully, pointing at Yugao, "What happened to her?" Kanako didn't even look up from her book. "I gave Naruto-kun the wrong birthday present," she said blandly. "So I had to explain adult relationships. She believes this means I've permanently corrupted him." "I see," Itachi replied after a pause. He turned slightly. "Yugao, we have a mission." That snapped her out of it instantly. "Oh, right," Yugao said, springing to her feet as though she hadn't just been questioning reality itself. She straightened, cleared her throat, and turned to Naruto. "Happy birthday, Naruto-kun," she said quickly, tossing him a small package. Naruto caught it and opened it eagerly. Inside were 2 books, one on basic chakra theory and introductory academy ninjutsu, the other detailing fundamental taijutsu forms. His eyes lit up. "Thanks, Neko Nichan," he beamed. "Now I can practice before the academy starts." "Inu Nichan, will you help me train?" "Of course," Kanako replied without hesitation. Yugao puffed her cheeks behind her mask but said nothing. Itachi stepped forward next, handing Naruto a neatly wrapped bundle. Naruto opened it carefully. "Kunai, shuriken, and a small, plain sheet of paper." "Paper?" Naruto asked, confused. "That," Itachi said, "is chakra paper. It reacts to your chakra and reveals elemental affinity." Naruto's interest spiked instantly. "So I just put chakra into it?" "Yes," Itachi nodded. "Think of it as a test. And an incentive. Perform well in the academy, and I'll teach you techniques suited to your affinity." Naruto's grin returned full force. "Alright, here goes." He pinched the paper between his fingers and focused. The moment chakra flowed, the paper lifted. It floated above his open palm as though gravity had simply stopped applying. Then it split. Again, and again, and again. The fragments multiplied until there were too many to count, each piece no larger than a fingernail. The pieces separated cleanly into 4 hovering clusters. One ignited in white-hot flame. Another liquefied completely, becoming floating droplets of water. A third compacted into a tight sphere, crackling with visible lightning. The last collapsed into fine earth, grains spinning slowly in the air. Silence slammed into the clearing. 3 Anbu stared. Even Itachi's composure fractured. "What?" Naruto blinked. "Is that bad?" Itachi exhaled slowly, then spoke with deliberate control. "No, it's not normal." Naruto tilted his head. "You possess affinity with every basic element," Itachi continued, eyes never leaving the suspended fragments. "And something else. Something undefined. Each reaction exceeded the standard response by orders of magnitude." He paused. "It should not be possible." Naruto's confusion melted into excitement. "So, I'm special?" "Yes," Itachi said flatly. "That's awesome." Naruto whooped, jumping into the air as the fragments finally dispersed. Behind him, the 3 Anbu exchanged looks heavy with unease. "This can't be coincidence," Yugao murmured. "It isn't," Kanako replied quietly. "I've seen records hinting at something similar, very old. We need to tell the Hokage," Itachi said immediately. Now, moments later, Yugao and Itachi vanished in twin Shunshin flashes. Kanako turned back to Naruto, her smile returning. though her eyes were sharp with thought. "How about that ramen?" she offered. Naruto's answer was immediate. Ichiraku, Hokage's office. Sarutobi Hiruzen was losing. Paperwork surrounded him like an encroaching enemy formation. Scrolls, reports, petitions. He had battled many foes in his lifetime, but this one never stayed dead. By midday, he was seconds away from lighting his pipe just to watch something burn. Then, two presences snapped into existence. Itachi and Yugao knelt immediately. "Well," Hiruzen said with weary humor, "this is a pleasant surprise." "To what do I owe?" "Hokage-sama," Itachi interrupted, voice firm. "This discussion must remain confidential." Hiruzen straightened instantly. With practiced efficiency, he dismissed the remaining anbu and activated layered privacy seals. The air in the room thickened. "Remove your masks," he ordered. "And speak." They obeyed. "It concerns Naruto-kun," Yugao began. "And his chakra," Itachi finished. Hiruzen's pipe stilled halfway to his mouth. "Go on," he said quietly. Itachi took a breath. "What we witnessed today," he said, "should not exist." Outside the tower, unseen and unheard, the seal on a small boy's stomach pulsed once. Deep within the darkness, iron bars creaked, and something ancient smiled, knowing the game had finally begun. "What about him?" Sarutobi asked immediately, worry slipping through his calm facade. "Has something happened to Naruto?" "Nothing harmful, Hokage-sama," Itachi replied quickly. "But we discovered something unusual." Sarutobi's shoulders relaxed slightly, though his eyes sharpened. "Unusual, you say? Then you have my full attention." Yugao explained first, recounting the birthday gifts and the decision to test Naruto's chakra affinity. When she finished, the Hokage hummed thoughtfully. "Testing affinity at 7 is early," he said. "But not unheard of. Go on." Itachi took over, his voice controlled but unable to fully hide his intrigue. He described the event exactly as it had unfolded. The levitating paper, the endless splitting, the transformation into fire, lightning, water, and earth. By the time he finished, Sarutobi's pipe slipped from his fingers and clattered softly against the desk. For a long moment, the Hokage said nothing. His mind raced. The description tugged at something buried deep in his memory, old scrolls, half-forgotten legends, fragmented records he had once dismissed as myth. Each time he thought he grasped it, the answer slipped away, leaving only a sense of dread and importance. "I know this," Sarutobi murmured. "Or I should." Unaware of the internal storm, Itachi continued. "We considered the possibility of a dormant Kekkei Genkei, or perhaps an entirely new manifestation." "Yes," Sarutobi said slowly. "That seems likely. Kanako has mentioned feeling something similar, recognition without clarity." He sighed heavily. "Whatever this is, it must remain secret." Yugao nodded instantly. "We thought the same, Hokage-sama." "Good," Sarutobi said. "If Danzo learns of this, he will not rest." "And Kumo?" His eyes darkened. "They would steal the child without hesitation." Both Anbu bowed deeply. "Hi, Hokage-sama." Itachi straightened slightly. "With your permission, I would like to train Naruto during his free time. His chakra reserves and elemental strength are abnormal. If guided early, I believe he could gain mastery before leaving the academy. Proper chakra control now may also prevent the instability Jinchuriki often suffer." Sarutobi studied Itachi carefully. "Normally, I would refuse," he said at last. "But this is not a normal case." "Very well. You may begin training him next week." Relief flickered briefly across Itachi's face. "Thank you, Hokage-sama." "I'm not finished," Sarutobi added sharply. Itachi stilled. "Naruto must understand that his affinities are an S-rank secret. He is not to tell anyone without my explicit permission. This will also serve as a test. If he can keep this secret, then perhaps he will be ready to learn the truth of his burden sooner than expected." "Hi," Itachi replied without hesitation. Sarutobi nodded, satisfied. "As for today's mission, you and Yugao will patrol the village. Kumo's ambassadors arrive soon, and I want no surprises." "Hi, Hokage-sama," Yugao answered. "I will inform Kanako when she brings Naruto by later," Sarutobi added, his tone softening. "Jiraiya sent a gift for the boy. I'll be giving him one of my own as well." With that, the privacy seals were lowered, and the two Anbu departed. Naruto listened intently as Itachi explained the importance of secrecy on the way to Ichiraku. To Itachi's mild surprise, the boy didn't protest or boast. Okay, Naruto said seriously. It's a secret. I won't tell anyone. The sincerity in his voice lingered even after Itachi vanished, leaving Kanako blinking in quiet pride. Ichiraku ramen. The familiar flap swung open. Hey, Oji-san, Naruto called cheerfully. Guess what today is? Tuchi's laugh boomed from the kitchen. Naruto? Then it must be your birthday. Before Naruto could answer, a blur shot out from behind the counter and nearly tackled him. Happy birthday, Naruto-kun. Ayame grinned brightly as she hugged him, then darted back behind the counter. Wait right there, I got you something. She returned minutes later, struggling slightly with a massive toad plush nearly half Naruto's height. Naruto stared, then exploded with joy. That's awesome, he shouted, hugging the plush tightly, and Ayame too. Thank you, Ayame Nichan. I love it. Kanako and Tuchi exchanged warm smiles. For a brief, fragile moment, the world felt kind. Most of the other customers, however, left quickly, casting dark looks over their shoulders. Tuchi ignored them. So, he said brightly, what'll it be today, birthday boy? 10 bowls of miso ramen. Naruto declared. With pork. Kanako winced internally but nodded anyway. Naruto ate like his life depended on it, one arm never leaving the toad plush. When they finally stood to leave, Naruto was smiling wider than he had all day. Hokage Tower. By the time Naruto and Kanako reached the tower, the sun had begun its slow descent. Sarutobi stood at the window of his office, pipe in hand, watching the village below. So many threads moving at once, he murmured. And all of them led back to that boy. Behind him, wrapped carefully and waiting on the desk, sat 2 gifts. Outside, unseen by any but the oldest eyes, the seal on Naruto's stomach pulsed faintly once more. And deep within the darkness, something ancient waited, patient and amused, for the next piece to fall. Naruto and Kanako entered the Hokage Tower together, waving to the secretary at the front desk. She smiled warmly and waved them through, already used to the sight of the blonde boy bounding around places most villagers would never dare approach so casually. You can go right up, she said kindly. Kanako lifted her hand to knock. Naruto did not. He reared back and kicked the door open with a grin. Hey, Gigi, how's it going? Sarutobi looked up from his desk, surprise flickering for half a second before melting into a broad, grandfatherly smile. Good evening to you too, Naruto-kun, he chuckled. I hear your birthday has been lively. Naruto beamed, still clutching the oversized toad plush against his chest. Yeah, first I got a book from Inu Nichan, then 2 from Neko Nichan, then Kanai and Shuriken from Weasel Nissan. And I found out I've got all the elements. Oh, and Ayame Nichan gave me this. Sarutobi finally noticed the plush. His eyes softened. Well then, he said, reaching beneath his desk, I suppose it's my turn. He tossed Naruto a small object. The boy fumbled it, then laughed. A toad wallet, Naruto exclaimed. Awesome, I thought it fitting, Sarutobi said gently. For your allowance. Naruto's smile widened. And this, Sarutobi continued, standing and holding out a second item, is something far more personal. It was an old shinobi pouch. The leather was worn smooth by time and use. This was mine when I first entered the academy, Sarutobi said quietly. I want you to have it. Naruto froze. His throat tightened as he accepted it with both hands. I'll take really good care of it, he promised, voice shaking as he fastened it to his belt. I know you will, Sarutobi replied. Now go. Enjoy the rest of your day. Naruto nodded, waved one last time, and hurried out with Kanako. Streets of Konoha, clan districts, night. The village was quieter now, lanterns casting long shadows across stone and tile. Naruto walked home slowly, contentment settling into his chest. It had been the best birthday he could remember. He'd even convinced Kanako to keep the plush safe at her place, away from hands that might destroy it just to hurt him. He was almost home when he heard it. Soft footfalls. He turned. A man sprinted down the street, a large sack slung over his shoulder, moving. Naruto's heart jumped. Hey, he shouted, what do you think you're doing? The man swore under his breath. This was not how it was supposed to go. Akabino Genji had planned this cleanly, enter as an ambassador, observe, extract the Hyuga heir, vanish. Instead, Konoha's vigilance had turned the village into a maze of shadows and blades. And now, A kid. Forget you saw me, Genji growled, setting the sack down. And walk away. The sack shifted. Naruto saw a young girl's face. You're kidnapping her, Naruto yelled, already pulling a kunai. I won't let you. The kunai flew. Then another. Genji dodged lazily, irritation flashing across his face. TCH. Enough. He formed seals in a blur, electricity screaming to life around his arm. A spear of crackling energy tore through the air, and a silver blur slammed into Naruto's path. The lightning struck flesh. Inu Nichan. Kanako staggered, smoke rising from her shoulder as she collapsed backward into Naruto's arms. 10 minutes earlier, Kanako had been moving fast, too fast to think. The Hyuga heiress was missing. The Kumo ambassador had vanished. The village was on edge. Then she heard Naruto's voice. She didn't hesitate. The moment she saw the lightning forming, she moved. Not again. The jutsu struck her. Now. Naruto held her as she fell, blood staining his hands. Inu Nichan, why? He sobbed. Why did you do that? Kanako smiled weakly, breath rattling. Because I promised myself I wouldn't fail again. Genji laughed, stepping closer, kunai glinting. Touching, he sneered. Now move aside, kid. Something inside Naruto snapped. Anger, fear, grief. They collided, and the world answered. Naruto screamed, clutching his head as pressure built behind his eyes, behind his chest, behind everything. The air itself began to tremble. Genji hesitated. Naruto lifted his head. The ground groaned. Just 2 words, Naruto whispered, not in rage but in certainty. The force exploded outward. The street collapsed. Genji's eyes widened as the world slammed into him. And everything went white. Far beneath the village, iron bars shattered their silence. The fox laughed. Rage swallowed Naruto whole. It wasn't loud at first. It didn't explode. It compressed. Every scream he'd buried, every bruise he'd hidden, every look of hatred he'd learned to ignore folding inward until there was no room left to breathe. The man standing before him was no longer just a stranger from a foreign village. He was a symbol, a culmination. He hurt her. He threatened her. That thought shattered something fundamental. Naruto dropped to his knees, fingers digging into his scalp as agony tore through his skull. It felt as if his head were being split open from the inside, fire racing behind his eyes, pressure building until the world blurred. His scream ripped into the night, raw and animal. Genji slowed his approach, kunai loose in his grip, irritation flickering into unease. The boy was trembling, breaking, but the air itself had begun to lean away from him. Then, abruptly, the screaming stopped. Naruto remained kneeling, breath coming in ragged pulls. When he lifted his head, Genji saw it. Something had changed. The boy's gaze was no longer wild or afraid. It was distant, focused, heavy. Genji scoffed, forcing confidence back into his voice. Got any last? 2, Naruto said quietly. The street answered before Genji could. The night imploded. An unseen force burst outward from Naruto like a shockwave, the stone beneath him collapsing in a perfect ring as if crushed by a giant's palm. The pressure slammed into Genji mid-step, pulverizing his guard and throwing him like debris. He struck a wall hard enough to crack it, collapsing in a heap as the world finally stilled. Silence rushed in after the devastation. Naruto swayed, breath shallow, every muscle screaming. He barely registered the destruction. All he saw was Kanako. Inu Nichan, he whispered, crawling to her side. Are you okay? Kanako forced her eyes open, and froze. Naruto's eyes were no longer blue. They shone metallic violet, pupils pinpricks surrounded by concentric rings, strange markings orbiting them like silent witnesses. Power bled from him in visible waves. No, her mind raced. That chakra, that pressure. Her gaze snapped to his hands. Naruto-kun, she rasped, panic slipping through her composure. Stop, are you doing that intentionally? Naruto looked down. Chakra was pouring from his palms, dense and luminous, twisting against his will. He tried to pull it back, tried to stop it, but the energy ignored him. It condensed, shaping itself with eerie precision. He could only watch. The chakra hardened, stretched, refined itself, 2 identical forms emerging from the light. When the glow faded, twin blades lay before him, long and elegant, unfinished yet unmistakably real. Simple blackthorn sheaths slid into existence beside them as if sealing a decision already made. Naruto stared. He could see the chakra flowing through the swords. No, through everything. Lines of energy traced the world like veins beneath skin. Since when can I see that? His vision sharpened, the night becoming painfully clear. Kanako coughed violently, blood seeping beneath her mask. Naruto jolted. Inu Nichan. He reached for her, and the world tilted. Exhaustion crashed down all at once, his strength vanishing like it had never existed. Darkness clawed at the edges of his vision. The last thing he heard was a calm, unfamiliar voice layered with faint amusement. My, Kana-chan, the voice chided gently. You really do collect trouble. Kanako coughed weakly. Am I dead? Somewhere else. Drip, drip, drip. Naruto opened his eyes. Cold water rippled around his ankles, though his feet never sank. He was standing in a vast, dim corridor of iron and stone. Pipes ran along the walls, 3 of them, each glowing faintly. Red, blue, and white. His gaze locked onto the red pipe. Something pulled him forward. He followed it until the corridor opened into a massive chamber. At its far end stood a colossal gate, bars thicker than tree trunks, bound together by a single paper seal. Then, eyes opened in the darkness. Huge, red, ancient. So, a voice thundered, vibrating through bone and soul, you finally decided to visit. Naruto stiffened. Where am I? This is your mind, brat, the voice replied with a low chuckle. And I am the 9 tails. Sealed inside you by your precious Hokage. Naruto swallowed, staring at the massive fox now visible behind the bars. So that's why they hate me. The fox's grin widened. Clever. Yes, you are their cage. Naruto clenched his fists. Then what about my eyes? And those swords? The fox snorted. Oh, I know exactly what that is. Then tell me. That, the fox replied lazily, is not my role. Naruto spun. Then whose is it? A new voice answered from behind him. Warm, familiar, and impossibly heavy with meaning. That would be ours, Naruto-kun. The air shifted. The darkness watched. And Naruto turned, heart pounding, as figures began to step forward from the shadows, leaving the truth hanging just out of reach. Outside the mindscape, Kanako's vision swam as pain ebbed and returned in dull waves. The world felt wrong, too quiet, too warm. When she forced her eyes open, the first thing she saw was a familiar face that should not have existed. Why her voice cracked. I watched you die. Does that mean, am I? No, the girl replied calmly. You're very much alive, and so am I. Kanako stared, breath hitching, then surged forward without thinking. She wrapped her arms around Rin as if letting go would shatter the moment. Her shoulders shook. I'm sorry, she choked. I don't even remember how it happened. One moment we were surrounded, the next, there was blood everywhere. I was standing there with my hand. It's all right, Rin interrupted softly, returning the embrace. I know, and I don't blame you. Kanako pulled back just enough to look at her. Rin hadn't aged a day. Same gentle eyes, same calm presence. How? Kanako whispered. And why do you still look the same? Kushina brought me back, Rin said simply. Now hold still. You're leaking more than pride. Green chakra bloomed around Rin's hands as she pressed them to Kanako's chest. The pain dulled instantly. Kanako snorted weakly. Just, don't rewrite my body again. Rin huffed. You will never let that go. You altered my genetics, Kanako shot back. That's memorable. Rin rolled her eyes but smiled. I was young, under fire, and transplanting a dojutsu for the first time. I didn't expect it to integrate. If it had gone normally, you'd have 1 eye and half the stamina. Instead, you ended up with 2, and reserves rivaling a Jinchuriki. Kanako's grin turned sheepish. I'm grateful. I really am. Her smile faded. You said Kushina brought you back. How? Rin's hands paused. She used a forbidden path. Summoned my soul, then anchored it. A seal inspired by an old Suna technique. She made this body real. A beat. She did it for Naruto. A gift she couldn't give in life. Kanako swallowed. Rin finished the treatment and straightened. That will hold. And, she glanced up, sensing movement, we have company. 2 figures landed moments later. Inu-chan. Are you? Yugao stopped cold, eyes darting across the scene. The unconscious Kumo shinobi. The bound Hyuga heiress. Naruto collapsed beside twin blades, and Rin kneeling calmly in the center of it all. Rin-san? Yugao whispered. Rin smiled. Hello, Yugao. Itachi. You've both grown. But you, Yugao stammered. You're supposed to be alive, Rin finished. Questions later. Priorities now. She rose, her voice gaining command. Itachi, secure the Kumo operative and deliver him to interrogation. Yugao, return the Hyuga child to her family. I'll take Kanako and Naruto to the Hokage. They moved instantly. The night swallowed them in flickers of chakra. Within the mind, drip, drip, Naruto stood ankle-deep in shadowed water, staring at the iron gate ahead. He had barely processed the fox's presence when another sensation crept over him, familiar, warm, right. Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned. 5 figures stood there, solid as memory. 3 men in old armor, distinct, powerful, unmistakable. 2 women between them, crimson hair marking them like a banner carried through centuries. Who are you? Naruto asked, wary but drawn forward all the same. The woman in red stepped ahead, her voice gentle. We are your family. His heart skipped. My family? She nodded. Uzumaki Uchiha Akane. And this, she placed a hand on the armored man beside her, is my husband, Madara. Naruto's breath caught. Our daughter, Akane continued softly, was Kushina. The world tilted. Then there. Naruto gestured, overwhelmed. My parents, Akane said, smiling toward the couple beside her. Mito Uzumaki and Hashirama Senju. And my uncle, Tobirama. Naruto's knees nearly gave out. First and second Hokage. My family? Madara's voice cut through the silence, amused. We've waited a long time to meet you, boy. Naruto crossed the distance without thinking and hugged them, awkward, fierce, desperate. Akane held him last. Kushina would be proud, she whispered. To awaken so early, and in such a way. Naruto pulled back. Ba-chan? My eyes. The swords. You said you'd explain. Akane nodded. We will. Madara, begin. Madara's gaze sharpened. Long ago lived the sage of 6 paths. His eyes were the Rinnegan. Hashirama continued, one son inherited the eyes. His blood split into clans, the Hyuga and the Uchiha. Mito's voice followed, warm and steady. Another inherited the body, ancestor to the Senju. And the youngest, our spirit, became the Uzumaki. Naruto frowned. And me? You carry them all, Akane said. That is why your eyes opened. Why you can shape chakra into steel. You awakened the Rinnegan, and your Zanpakuto. 2, Naruto whispered, glancing at the spectral blades. Akane smiled. That is unprecedented. Madara folded his arms. I know some of what the Rinnegan can do. Gravity. All natures. Balance between yin and yang. His eyes gleamed. But I died before mastering it. Naruto leaned forward. Teach me. Akane's expression softened, and hardened at once. We will, she said. But first, you must learn about your father. The chamber darkened. The iron gate behind Naruto creaked. And from the shadows, something old and patient began to listen. Hokage Tower, outside the mind. The room was quiet in the way only sealed rooms ever were. Soft lamplight pooled across the office, catching dust in the air. Rin sat on the edge of a chair, posture relaxed but alert. Kanako leaned against the wall, arms folded, her usual sharp presence muted by exhaustion. Sarutobi remained behind his desk, pipe unlit in his hand, not forgotten, simply ignored. On the couch, Naruto slept. His breathing was uneven at first, then steadied. When his eyelids finally fluttered open, the first thing he did, without anyone prompting him, was cut the chakra feeding his eyes. The pressure vanished. The rings faded. Only normal blue remained. Sarutobi murmured. Awake already. Naruto groaned and rolled onto his side. Feels like someone tried to hammer my skull from the inside. Kanako snorted softly despite herself. That tends to happen, Sarutobi said lightly, when a child decides to awaken multiple inherited abilities at once. Naruto pushed himself upright, rubbing his temples. Then his expression shifted. No grin, no embarrassment, no confusion. Just certainty. Gigi, he said quietly. I already know. The air changed. Sarutobi stilled. Kanako straightened. Only Rin showed no surprise. I know about the fox, Naruto continued. And I know about my parents. Silence crashed into the room. Kanako's breath caught. Sarutobi's pipe slipped from his fingers and clinked softly against the desk. Rin finally spoke. You met them, didn't you? Naruto turned to her fully now, studying her as if seeing her for the first time. Who are you? She smiled, warm and familiar in a way that made his chest ache. Nohara Rin, your mother asked me to look after you, Naruto-kun. We'll talk about that later. She met his eyes. You went where she prepared for you, didn't you? He nodded. Kanako exhaled slowly. So she really did it, she murmured. She transferred the seal. Yes, Rin replied. In the brief window before Minato left her side. Sarutobi raised a hand. Enough. One of you needs to explain what you're talking about, slowly. Kanako answered this time. It's a legacy seal. Uzumaki work. It carries echoes, fragments of souls. Not enough to bind them. Enough to teach. Sarutobi frowned. And whose echoes? Naruto answered before anyone else could. Hashi Jiji, Mito Bachan, Tobi Oji, Akane Bachan, and Madara Jiji. The name hit like thunder. Sarutobi stared at him, then at Rin, then at Kanako. Explain, he demanded. Rin didn't soften it. Naruto's lineage includes Senju Hashirama, Uzumaki Mito, Senju Tobirama, and Uchiha Madara. Kanako finished. Sarutobi leaned back heavily. All this time, she asked us to hide it, Kanako said quietly. Kushina didn't want Naruto judged for blood he didn't choose, just like she didn't want to be judged for her father. Sarutobi closed his eyes briefly. And Madara? Naruto tilted his head. He wasn't what the stories say. He explained, not like a child, but like someone recounting history they had seen. Banishment. Lies. A masked enemy twisting events. Time torn open. A man erased by rumor rather than death. When he finished, the room was very still. At any rate, Sarutobi said at last, voice tired but firm, none of this leaves this room. Not your parents. Not your bloodline. Not yet. Naruto nodded. I get it. Sarutobi studied him carefully. Your mother left 2 requests. Naruto straightened. Tell me. The first, Sarutobi said, was that once Rin awakened, you would live with her. Rin blinked. Sarutobi continued, I've already arranged it. A larger apartment, closer to the tower. Your belongings have been moved. Naruto stared at Rin, surprise flickering across his face. I get to live with you? Rin smiled gently. If you want to. He nodded immediately. Yeah. Sarutobi allowed himself a small smile. Good. Then I will tell you the second request. His expression hardened. She asked that when the world finally forced you to choose a path, when the power inside you demanded a direction, I was to show you something she left behind. Naruto felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of something? Sarutobi stood and reached for a sealed drawer beneath his desk. A truth, he said quietly. And a warning. The seal flared as he touched it. Outside the tower, thunder rolled, despite clear skies. And deep within Naruto's soul, iron bars shuddered once more. Naruto listened in silence, absorbing every word. When Sarutobi finished explaining the arrangements, the boy nodded once. Okay, he said simply. That all makes sense. Then his brow furrowed. You said there were 2 things. Sarutobi's expression softened, but there was weight behind his eyes. Yes. The second request your mother left for you. He reached beneath his desk and rested his hands together. Kushina asked that, when the time came, you be given access to your parents' collected knowledge. Not fragments. Not summaries. Everything. Naruto straightened. Your mother's work in sealing techniques. Clan records. Training methods. Historical notes. Your father's research. Sarutobi paused. The only exception is Minato's personal techniques. Those were sealed separately, entrusted to my student, Jiraiya. They require your blood and chakra to unseal. No one else can access them. Naruto's eyes shone. So, when do I get them? Sarutobi laughed quietly. You already have. Naruto blinked. What? The pouch I gave you, Sarutobi said. Check the underside of the flap. There's a concealed storage seal layered beneath a bloodlock. It will respond only to you. Naruto stared at his belt like it had personally betrayed him. I've been carrying all that around, and nobody told me? Sarutobi smiled innocently. I was waiting until you were properly introduced to your caretaker and your teachers. That's evil, Jiji, Naruto muttered. A familiar voice drifted from behind him. I agree. Truly heartless. Naruto spun around. Weasel knee. The Anbu stepped forward, amusement clear in his posture. You may remove your mask, Sarutobi said. There's no reason to hide it from him anymore. The mask came away. Naruto stared. So your name's really Itachi? It is, Itachi replied calmly. Uchiha Itachi. Naruto's head tilted. Then, are we related? Itachi glanced at Sarutobi, one eyebrow lifting. Sarutobi sighed. It appears Naruto is the grandson of Uchiha Madara. For once, Itachi lost all composure. Excuse me? I'll explain later, Sarutobi said dryly. For now, Naruto and Rin should go home. Training begins in a week, Training Ground 7. Naruto nodded eagerly. Rin offered her hand, and he took it without hesitation. As they left, Sarutobi turned to the others just as Yugao arrived in a swirl of movement. Report, Sarutobi said. Hyuga Hinata is safe, Yugao answered. Shaken, but unharmed. Hiyashi-sama and Hazashi-sama are furious. And the infiltrator? Sarutobi asked. Itachi answered. Confession obtained. Orders came directly from the Raikage and Kumo's council. They intended to violate the treaty under diplomatic cover. Sarutobi's eyes gleamed. Good. 3 days later, Naruto adjusted the sunglasses on his face as he walked beside Rin through the village. Where are we going again? He asked. A shop, Rin replied. One that sells gear and answers. The owner knew your parents well. He's very perceptive. Naruto nodded, then frowned as people stared. The looks shifted when they noticed Rin holding his hand. A civilian boy stepped into their path, smirking. You don't have to waste time with that, he said, gesturing toward Naruto. Go out with me instead. Rin blinked. With what? The demon brat, he scoffed. Her smile vanished. The only thing offensive here, Rin said coldly, is you. The boy lunged. He never touched her. Pain dropped him to the ground moments later, clutching his face and screaming. Rin stood over him, chakra fading from her fingers. Remember this, she said quietly. Ninja are not prey. Kanako appeared beside the fallen boy, hauling him up by the collar. Interrogation would love to meet you. Send my regards, Rin replied calmly. The street cleared instantly. Kumogakure, Raikage's office. The Raikage paced. Genji should have reported by now. A knock. Raikage-sama, a messenger said, pale. Message from Konoha. Relief flashed, then died. The seal was unmistakable. He broke it open and read. His breath slowed, then stopped. The scroll slipped from his fingers as a single sentence burned into his thoughts. Recompense will be paid, or the truth will be shared. Outside, thunder rolled. And far away, in Konoha, a boy with ancient eyes took his first step toward a future the world was not ready for. Kumogakure, Raikage's office. The Raikage read the scroll twice. Then a third time. By the end, his knuckles were white where they crushed the parchment. The message was precise, calm, merciless. Konoha had not screamed. It had not threatened loudly. It had simply documented the truth, and placed it on the table with a blade resting on top. A failed abduction, a violated treaty, a Jinchuriki nearly harmed, an Anbu wounded, and then the demand, comparable recompense. The Raikage exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. Losing Genji was one thing. Losing leverage was another. Losing the daimyo's support, that was fatal. Summon my sons, he ordered at last, voice heavy. And Yugito. The messenger froze. Raikage-sama, surely. We do not have a choice, the Raikage snapped. If we resist, we stand alone. And alone, we burn. When the door closed, he sank back into his chair. This, he muttered, will cost me everything. Konoha, Urahara's weapon shop. The bell chimed softly as Rin and Naruto stepped inside. The shop felt strange. Not dangerous, aware. Tools lined the walls, some ordinary, others humming faintly with chakra that felt old and deliberate. Naruto's fingers twitched with the urge to touch everything. This is the place, Rin said. Try not to wander. Naruto barely heard her. Kazuki, Rin called. It's me, and I brought a customer. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then, clack, clack, clack. Naruto stiffened. That sound. A man emerged from the back, striped hat tilted lazily, eyes sharp despite the grin. Black Haori. Wooden sandals. That same voice that had haunted Naruto's dreams. My, the man drawled. Rin-chan, you never do things halfway, do you? Back from the dead, and with company. Naruto pointed at him, accusing. You. The man pointed back, equally dramatic. Me, you were in my dream. Dream? The man mused. Such a flexible word. Rin's eyes narrowed. Kazuki. Right, he waved. Business first. Rin rattled off the list. Training weapons, storage scrolls, supplies. Kazuki nodded and vanished toward the back. As they moved on, Naruto stopped in front of a bright orange outfit hanging proudly on display. He stared at it, then scoffed. What kind of ninja wants to glow like a torch? Rin relaxed instantly. Good, you're learning. They chose practical clothing, dark, layered, built for movement. When Naruto caught his reflection, he barely recognized himself. Smaller, yes, but focused. Armed. Real. When Kazuki returned, he eyed Naruto from head to toe. You look like a shinobi who lost a fight with a washing machine. Naruto's glare could have cut steel. Say that again, sandal face. Kazuki's grin widened. Perfect. They paid and left. From the doorway, Kazuki watched them go, eyes thoughtful. 2 blades, he murmured. At that age, troublesome indeed. Later, on the streets, Naruto walked quietly beside Rin, groceries in hand. His thoughts were elsewhere, deep in memories that weren't entirely his. Rin-chan, he said finally, hesitant. After this, can we go somewhere else? She glanced down. Where? There's a place my family told me about. I want to see if it's real. She smiled. Then we'll go. Inside the seal, earlier. Naruto had stood before them, overwhelmed. They told me my dad was the 4th, he said softly. Madara snorted. Observant. Hashirama laughed. Tobirama didn't. Power runs in blood, Tobirama said firmly. But it is earned through effort. Mito nodded. Which is why what we left behind is not meant for idle hands. She had explained the hidden place. The library. The seals layered with blood and intent. Only those you trust, she warned. Naruto had nodded solemnly. When the fox revealed a truth Naruto hadn't expected, that one of his protectors wore a mask for reasons deeper than duty, the chamber had erupted in laughter and disbelief. Naruto had promised to ask. Eventually, back in the present, Rin adjusted the bags. You're quiet. Naruto nodded. Just thinking. Above them, clouds rolled in. Far away, in the depths of Kumogakure, preparations were being made, chains loosened, guards reassigned, a Jinchuriki summoned. And in Konoha, behind a waterfall known for Jiraiya's research, ancient seals waited, undisturbed for generations. The world had begun to move. And it would not stop for a 7-year-old boy with 2 swords and eyes the gods once feared. Rin shook herself free of the spiral her thoughts had taken. Too much had happened. Far too much for anyone. Let alone someone who had died, skipped nearly a decade, and woken up in a world that no longer fit the shape she remembered. Focus. She looked down at Naruto, who was balancing the grocery bags like they weighed nothing, eyes bright with anticipation. All right, Rin said, clapping her hands once. Let's finish this fast and get moving. I want to see this place before it gets dark. Naruto grinned. Yes, ma'am. As they walked, Rin's thoughts drifted again, quieter this time, heavier. Less than a week ago, she had been bleeding out on a battlefield. Chidori through the chest. Cold. Darkness. Then nothing. Now she was here. Alive. Young. Out of time. Everyone she knew had grown older without her. Kanako carried years of loss behind her eyes. Sarutobi had aged into the weight of leadership. Even the village felt different, harder, sharper. And Naruto. Naruto was 7 years old, carrying burdens that would crush grown shinobi. Kushina, you really didn't do anything halfway, did you? Rin glanced at him again. He was humming under his breath, already thinking about training, about getting stronger. At least, she thought firmly, he won't face it alone. Behind the waterfall, the roar of water filled the air, deafening and constant. Rin stopped at the edge of the pool and crouched. Hop on. I'll carry you across. Naruto didn't argue, he hopped onto her back instantly. They skimmed over the surface of the water, chakra steady, spray misting the air. As they passed through the curtain of falling water, the noise dropped away all at once. Silence. Behind the waterfall, a cavern opened into darkness lit by evenly spaced torches. The air was cool, old, untouched by time. They walked deeper until Rin stopped short. 2 massive doors stood before them, carved from dark wood veined like iron. Seals covered every inch of the surface, layered and interlocked in patterns so complex Rin felt dizzy just looking at them. That's a lot of blood seals, she murmured. Naruto swallowed. This should work, right? Rin nodded. Go ahead. Naruto stepped forward. Remembering Madara's instruction, he focused chakra to his teeth, nicked his thumb, and pressed it against the seal. The reaction was immediate. The markings flared, light rippling outward as if the door itself were breathing. Chakra tugged at him, testing, measuring, then released. With a deep, resonant sound, the doors began to open. Rin's breath caught. Beyond them stretched a vast underground hall. Shelves carved directly into stone rose along the walls, stacked with scrolls, thousands of them. Training dummies, practice fields, and sealed chambers branched off into the darkness. It wasn't just a library. It was a legacy. Kami, Rin whispered, this could rival the Hokage's vault. Naruto's eyes sparkled, but he didn't rush forward. He stood still, taking it in, respectful, almost reverent. After a moment, Rin cleared her throat and shifted back into instructor mode. Alright, Naru-kun, we'll explore later. First things first. She pointed toward an open stretch of stone floor. 100 laps, then 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. No shortcuts. Naruto didn't complain. He nodded once, determination settling into his posture. Yes, Rin-chan. As he took off running, Rin watched him go, small frame, enormous will. Behind them, the ancient hall waited. And somewhere deep within the stone, seals that hadn't stirred in generations quietly acknowledged their heir had finally arrived. The cavern felt different once the truth was spoken aloud. The river whispered behind them, steady and indifferent, while the false sky above shimmered with layered seals that mimicked clouds drifting past a hidden sun. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Naruto was the first to recover. He coughed lightly and scratched his cheeks warm. Sorry. I didn't mean to stare like that. Izumi let out a small breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The blush on her face softened, turning into something closer to relief. You figured it out faster than I expected, she admitted. Most adults don't. Naruto shrugged, though his eyes were sharp again, observant in a way that didn't match his age. Guess I've had a lot of practice noticing things people don't want noticed. That made her pause. She studied him, not as a prodigy, not as a Jinchuriki, not as the heir to impossible bloodlines, but as a boy who had learned survival through awareness. It unsettled her more than the revelation had. You're not wrong, she said quietly. Izumi adjusted her Hite 8, fingers lingering there a second longer than necessary. For now, this stays between us. Rin knows. Yugao knows. Kanako knows. Beyond that, nothing. Naruto nodded immediately. I won't tell. I know, she said, and surprised herself by meaning it completely. Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't awkward. Izumi glanced toward the smaller tunnel that led to the sealed library. Her lips curved faintly. Before we do anything else, I want to see it. Naruto's eyes lit up. Me too. They approached the inner doors together. Unlike the outer seals, these didn't respond instantly. Chakra flowed through the carvings like veins waking from sleep, testing intent rather than blood. The doors opened. What lay beyond wasn't just shelves of scrolls. It was history, encoded in ink, paper, bone, and chakra. Training manuals etched in old dialects. Fuinjutsu arrays so complex they seemed alive. Armor racks bearing marks of battles long forgotten. Weapons wrapped in seals that pulsed faintly, as if dreaming. Izumi inhaled sharply. This isn't just clan knowledge, she murmured. This is pre-village. Naruto stepped forward, feeling something tug deep in his chest. Not the fox. Not his eyes. Something older. A faint vibration passed through the room, so subtle Izumi almost missed it. The torches flickered. One of the far seals glowed, just once. Did you feel that? She asked. Naruto nodded slowly. Yeah. From the depths of the library, something shifted. Not opened. Not broken. Acknowledged. Naruto's heartbeat quickened, a strange mix of excitement and unease crawling up his spine. Izumi placed a hand on his shoulder. Whatever this place is, she said softly, it's been waiting for you. Far above them, beyond stone and seals and water, Konoha slept, unaware that an ancient inheritance had just stirred. And somewhere in the darkness behind the scroll-lined walls, a seal cracked ever so slightly, releasing a whisper that had not been heard since the Age of Legends. Naruto blinked. Summoning, contracts? He repeated slowly, as if the words needed time to settle. Izumi stepped farther into the circular chamber, boots echoing softly against the stone floor. The room felt different from the rest of the library, quieter, heavier. The air carried a pressure that made the hair on her arms prickle, the unmistakable presence of ancient chakra layered upon ancient chakra. Yes, she said, voice low with awe. Real ones, old ones. Each pedestal stood equidistant from the next, forming a perfect ring. The scrolls resting atop them varied wildly, some pristine and lacquered, others cracked with age, bound in cords that looked more like chains than rope. The animals carved into the stone beneath each pedestal seemed almost alive in the torchlight, eyes gleaming as if they were watching. Naruto walked slowly, almost reverently, past them. "Wolf," he murmured, reading the kanji etched deep into the stone. "Fox, eagle." He stopped in front of one pedestal in particular. The fox. The carving wasn't cute or playful like the masks sold during festivals. This fox was sharp, cunning, its tails flaring outward like blades. Naruto felt a faint tug in his gut as he stood before it. Deep within him, something stirred. A low, amused chuckle echoed faintly in his mind. "Ho?" Naruto stiffened. "You knew about this?" He thought back. "Of course I did," the Nine Tails replied lazily. "These contracts predate your village, Kit. Some of them even predate your precious Hokage monuments." Izumi noticed his pause. "Naruto-kun, are you alright?" He nodded, though his eyes never left the fox pedestal. "Yeah, just, feels important." She joined him, gaze sweeping the room. "This explains a lot. Your heritage, your chakra, the fact that you manifested two blades without guidance." She hesitated, then added, "Summoning contracts like these aren't just agreements. They're relationships." Naruto looked at her. "Relationships?" "Yes," Izumi said. "Most shinobi are lucky to sign one in their lifetime. Even fewer are compatible enough to be accepted." Her eyes widened slightly as realization dawned. "But you might be compatible with several." Naruto's heartbeat picked up. "So I could." "Careful," she interrupted gently. "Just because they're here doesn't mean they'll accept you. Some summons test harshly. Some kill failures." Naruto swallowed. Then he smiled. "Guess that means I'll have to get strong enough they don't have a choice." Izumi stared at him for a long moment before laughing quietly. "You say things like that far too casually." He scratched the back of his head. "Sorry?" She shook her head. "No, don't be." She stepped back, giving him space. "We won't touch these yet. Not today. Contracts like these deserve respect and preparation. Rushing would be dangerous." Naruto nodded, reluctantly tearing his gaze away from the pedestals. "Yeah, I get it." As they turned to leave, the torchlight flickered. Just once. Behind them, unseen, the carving of the fox cracked ever so slightly, no sound, no light, just a hairline fracture across ancient stone. And far above, beneath the memorial stone that bore the names of the fallen, the wind shifted direction. The Packs had noticed him. And they were waiting. The doors closed behind them with a low, ancient sigh. Naruto stood at the center of the circular chamber, heart thudding as he slowly turned in place. Stone pedestals surrounded him like silent sentinels, each one crowned with a scroll that radiated a different presence. Some felt calm, some felt sharp, a few felt hungry. Izumi had frozen beside him, eyes wide, breath shallow. "Those aren't just records," she said quietly, awe bleeding into her voice. "Naruto, this room holds summoning compacts." He looked at her, blinking. "Summoning compacts?" She nodded, still scanning the chamber. "A contract is an agreement between a shinobi and an entire species. Sign one, and you earn the right to call them across realms. Most ninja are lucky to ever see one. Fewer are chosen by them." Naruto whistled under his breath. "And there are, like, a lot. Too many," Izumi murmured. "Even clans don't keep this many in one place." A familiar presence stirred deep within Naruto's mind. Not the fox this time, but something colder, heavier. "You heard correctly," Madara's voice echoed with dry amusement. "But I was imprecise earlier. The eyes you bear allow you to bind multiple pacts, no more than 6. Choose without haste. The wrong summons can be worse than none at all." Naruto absorbed that in silence. 6. He glanced around the chamber again, suddenly aware that every scroll seemed to be watching him back. "I think," he said slowly, "I'll start with 3. Izumi finally tore her gaze away from the room and looked at him. "That's wise." She hesitated, then stopped in front of one pedestal in particular. Her expression softened. Something like longing flickered across her face. Naruto noticed immediately. "You want that one," he said. Izumi startled. "What? No, You do," he insisted gently. "So, why not?" Her eyes widened. "You'd allow that?" Naruto grinned. "They're my contracts to manage, not my summons to hoard. If something here can help protect you, that's reason enough." For a heartbeat, Izumi forgot how to breathe. Then she laughed, and before Naruto could react, she pulled him into a quick, fierce hug. It caught him off guard enough that his face collided squarely with her chest. She froze. He froze. They separated instantly, both bright red. Sorry. Izumi stammered. It's fine. Naruto squeaked, staring determinedly at the floor. Clearing her throat, Izumi turned back to the pedestal she'd been drawn to. The carving showed a dark bird perched on a dead branch. The kanji was sharp and deliberate. Raven, she said reverently. This was once an Uchiha battle pact. Long before crows were used for misdirection, ravens were used for war. I thought it lost. Naruto watched her with a soft smile. Then let's bring it back. While Izumi prepared, Naruto walked the circle himself. He studied each option carefully, thinking of terrain, versatility, survival. Land, air, water. When he finally stopped, 3 scrolls lay at his feet. Izumi-chan? He called. Can you show me how it's done? She nodded, kneeling and unrolling the raven scroll. Watch closely. She bit her thumb, pressed blood to parchment, signed her name in careful kanji, then placed her palm beside it. Simple. Final. The air shifted. Naruto followed suit, repeating the ritual for each of his choices. The chamber seemed to hum in response, as if acknowledging him. Next, Izumi said, standing, we notify them. She demonstrated the seals, hands moving with practiced grace, then slammed her palm to the stone. A burst of smoke filled the room. When it cleared, a raven stood where the smoke had been, larger than any normal bird, eyes gleaming crimson. Who calls? It croaked. We have not answered a voice since the age of exile. Izumi bowed her head respectfully. I am Uchiha Izumi. I ask to walk the path of your summoner. The raven studied her in silence. And why, it asked at last, should we answer you? Izumi met its gaze without flinching. Because I will use your power not for pride, but to protect those I choose. And I will honor your name with my actions. The raven clicked its beak once. Then we will watch you closely. I am Zozo. The pact will be acknowledged. With that, it vanished. Izumi exhaled, hands trembling, then smiled, fierce and victorious. Naruto beamed at her. You were amazing. She laughed softly. Coming from you, I'll take that. He glanced at his own scrolls, pulse quickening. Let's head to the training field. One of mine doesn't like dry land. Izumi's eyes sparkled. Then let's see what you've bound yourself to. They turned toward the exit together, unaware that deep within the summoning realms, something ancient had opened one eye and recognized the boy who dared choose freely. The hidden training field breathed with quiet power. Water flowed lazily along the stream's edge, reflecting the artificial sky above. Naruto stood at the center of the clearing, feet planted firmly in the soil, fingers flexing as he prepared the hand signs Izumi had shown him. All right, he muttered, steadying his breath. Here goes. As he began forming the seals, a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. How much chakra am I supposed to use? He remembered Zozo, the raven, how controlled the summoning had been. But now he wasn't calling one representative. He was calling 3, from 3 entirely different packs. For a heartbeat, hesitation threatened to break his rhythm. Then, his vision shifted. The world sharpened, chakra lines surfacing like glowing veins beneath reality itself. The Rinnegan stirred, the faint rings flaring as the tomo rotated slowly, deliberately. And with that awakening came understanding. Not words, not instruction, knowing. Naruto adjusted his chakra output instinctively, distributing it with precision that should not have belonged to a child. He slammed his palm down. Multiple summoning technique. Smoke erupted across the clearing in 3 distinct bursts. When it cleared, the air felt crowded. 3 figures stood before him. Each emanated a different presence, one heavy and grounded, one sharp and swift, and one cold and fluid, like the depths of an unseen lake. Who calls us? The voices overlapped, curious rather than hostile. Naruto swallowed, then straightened his shoulders. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I'm asking to become a summoner of your clans. 3 sets of eyes fixed on him. The test had begun. Konoha Hospital, earlier that day. Rin appeared at the hospital entrance in a flash of motion, pausing just long enough to smooth her clothing before stepping inside. The scent of antiseptic hit her immediately, familiar, grounding. A nurse behind the front desk looked up with a polite smile. Can I help you, miss? Nohara Rin, she replied calmly. I'm here to see the head of this hospital. The nurse blinked. May I ask why? Because I'm expected. The smile vanished. Eyes widened. Within minutes, hurried whispers spread, and the current head physician arrived, clearly irritated. I was told the new director would be here shortly. The woman snapped, then froze when she saw Rin. You? Yes, Rin said coolly. That director would be me. Recognition hit the woman like a physical blow. Rin, but, you were declared dead? Rin finished evenly. Take that up with the Hokage. The tension eased after that. Old familiarity returned as Rin was shown through the hospital, reacquainting herself with wards, surgical rooms, and supply stores. They eventually stopped before a single, carefully decorated room. It felt different. Painted walls depicted a peaceful training ground. Plush toys were stacked neatly in a chest. Children's books filled a shelf by the bed. The window overlooked the Hokage monument. Rin frowned. This room? Akimi's expression softened. It's for our most frequent young patient. Why? Rin asked quietly. The answer came with visible restraint. Because no child should need this many visits. Uzumaki Naruto, he's brought in far too often. Civilians hurt him when they think no one is watching. Rin felt something cold settle in her chest. I'm glad he's cared for here, she said after a moment. So are we, Akimi replied. Every time he smiles, we pretend it's enough. Rin turned away before her expression betrayed too much. Training ground, later. The negotiations with the summoned clans had ended quicker than Izumi expected. Naruto had been respectful, honest, determined. It mattered. Now, clones worked tirelessly across the clearing, some practicing elemental control, others maintaining balance drills, still others copying taijutsu patterns from scrolls. The real Naruto sat by the river's edge, feet dangling in the cool water, breathing steadily. Izumi knelt beside him, activating the final seal on his chest. You're officially under resistance level 1, she said. Don't complain. This is mercy. Naruto laughed weakly. Feels like I'm wearing weights made of gravity. Exactly. She leaned back on her hands, eyes thoughtful. We need a plan. A real one. Naruto looked up at her. Hit me. In the mornings, 500 shadow clones. Split between chakra control, elemental refinement, and kata study, she said crisply. You train physically with me. Noon break, clones disperse. Afternoon, another 500. That time goes toward experimentation with your eyes. He winced. That sounds intense. It is, Izumi agreed without apology. Your second week finishes elemental training. Third week is Rinnegan only. Naruto frowned. Why does that sound ominous? Because dojutsu only evolve under pressure, she said quietly. Real pressure. I won't go easy. He met her gaze, serious now. I can handle it. I know. She stood, brushing dirt from her pants. Fourth week, Kenjutsu. Final week, Genjutsu. Naruto grinned. And after the academy starts? We maintain, Izumi said. And we add Fuinjutsu. Slowly. He nodded. Sounds good. Above them, unseen seals pulsed faintly. Far away, in places that remembered older wars and deeper pacts, something listened. And for the first time in generations, it waited for Uzumaki Naruto to grow strong enough to knock. Naruto lay flat on his back, hands folded behind his head, staring up at the artificial sky sealed into the cavern ceiling. The illusion shimmered faintly, clouds drifting at a pace too perfect to be real. A year, just 1 year, and everything had changed. Quick note. If you want early access and darker extended chapters, you can support the story on Patreon. Links in the description. Let's continue. Not long ago, the village had been a place of cold stares and locked doors. Now he had names to call family, truths that filled the empty spaces inside him, and power that no longer felt like a curse pressing against his ribs. He had a home that smelled like food and medicine instead of dust. Someone who waited for him to come back. I'm not alone anymore, he thought, lips curling into a quiet smile. And I'm not wasting it. Beside him, Izumi watched from the corner of her eye. Naruto's expression wasn't loud or wild, it was calm. Content. That unsettled her more than his usual chaos. Children like him weren't supposed to look that resolved. She lowered herself onto the grass beside him, mirroring his posture. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The peace shattered instantly. A sharp voice echoed through the cavern like thunder. Why do I see two shinobi horizontal when they should be moving? Naruto and Izumi shot upright so fast the grass scattered beneath them. Rin stood at the cave entrance, hands on her hips, eyes blazing with mock fury. The corners of her mouth twitched, barely restrained laughter threatening to give her away. Izumi froze mid-stance. Rin's gaze slid over her, pausing deliberately. "Well," Rin said slowly, a grin spreading. "This is new." Izumi flushed crimson. Naruto blinked. Rin-chan, this is Izumi-chan. That's her real. Oh, I know, Rin cut in cheerfully. And wow, Itachi-chan, you clean up dangerously well. Izumi made a strangled sound. Naruto coughed. Save the teasing for later. Rin laughed, the sound echoing warmly through the cavern. Relax, I'm kidding. Mostly. Her expression softened as she turned back to Naruto. So, first full day without me hovering, did you survive? Naruto's eyes lit up instantly. You won't believe it. Shadow clones, elemental drills, library research, resistance seals, and then we found something insane. Rin raised an eyebrow. Define insane. A whole room, just summoning contracts. That stopped her cold. Show me. She grabbed Naruto's wrist and dragged him toward the library before he could say another word. Izumi followed, shaking her head as she went. When Rin stepped into the contract chamber, all humor vanished from her face. Scrolls surrounded her in a silent circle, ancient, powerful, humming faintly with chakra. Her breath caught. This, she whispered. This shouldn't exist. Naruto beamed. You should pick one. Emotion surged up so fast Rin didn't stop herself. She pulled Naruto into a tight hug. Too tight. Too close. Naruto froze, face pressed somewhere he definitely wasn't trained to handle yet. Rin-chan? Air? Izumi cleared her throat pointedly. Rin yelped and released him, face redder than his jacket. Sorry. Reflex. She turned away quickly, pretending intense interest in the scrolls. After a long moment, she stopped before one pedestal. Snow leopard. Minutes later, blood sealed the contract. The summoning answered eagerly, too eagerly. The small leopard cub bowled Rin over in a blur of fur and excitement, licking her face until she was laughing despite herself. I like you, the summon declared proudly. We'll be great together. And then it was gone. The chamber fell silent. That happened, Naruto said. Izumi nodded. Objectively strange. 1 month later. Shinobi Academy grounds. The academy courtyard buzzed with noise, parents, children, expectations thick in the air. Clan banners, subtle and unspoken, marked invisible territories. Naruto arrived hand in hand with Rin. Whispers followed instantly. Rin knelt, kissed his forehead, and smiled. Be good. And be smart. He nodded, trying not to grin too wide. When she left, the weight returned, but it no longer crushed him. He felt eyes on his back as he walked forward alone. Naruto had changed. Taller, leaner, stronger. The seals hidden beneath his clothes hummed faintly. His swords rested silently, bound into symbols no one else could see. And when his gaze swept the crowd, it wasn't fearful. It was assessing. Across the yard, a pair of dark eyes locked onto his. Not Sasuke. Not Hinata. Someone else. Someone watching too closely. Naruto's smile faded. And somewhere deep within him, something ancient stirred, alert, interested, and very much awake. Flashback. Naruto had been laughing. It was a rare sound these days, not because he was unhappy, but because training had carved the laughter into something quieter, more controlled. He and Itachi walked side by side through the afternoon streets, heading toward a familiar training ground tucked away from prying eyes. The second week of training had ended, and the air felt lighter for it. Then the air shifted. 3 figures appeared in synchronized blurs, ANBU masks snapping into existence like predators surfacing from water. Boar, hare, bat. Naruto stiffened instinctively. Izumi stepped half a pace in front of him without thinking. The boar-masked Anbu spoke first, voice rigid. Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Itachi. You are to present yourselves to the council chambers immediately. Orders from the civilian and elder councils. Silence followed. Izumi's eyes narrowed, not in confusion but in disbelief. Repeat that, she said calmly. Too calmly. The Anbu hesitated. The civilian and elder councils. Stop. Izumi's voice cut like steel. Who authorized you to deliver that order? The councils, he answered, uncertainty creeping in now. Izumi's chakra flared, not explosively but dangerously focused. Naruto felt it like pressure in his chest. And you obeyed, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, because our duty is to follow. The Hokage, she snapped. And the Hokage alone. The clearing felt smaller. You are Anbu, Izumi continued, voice rising. Not errand runners for civilians playing at power. You never move on unverified orders. Not from elders. Not from civilians. Not from anyone who isn't the Hokage or Shinobi Council, and even then, not without confirmation. The three Anbu straightened in visible alarm. You will report this to Hokage-sama immediately, she finished coldly. Every word, every name. I will attend this meeting, because I want to hear what they thought they were doing. She glanced down at Naruto, hand resting lightly on his shoulder. And I will make sure this never happens again. The Anbu vanished without another word. The council chamber reeked of impatience. Whispers, glares, thinly veiled disgust aimed at the small blonde boy seated between two shinobi who radiated quiet menace. Then the doors burst open. The shinobi council entered first. Behind them, Sarutobi Hiruzen. The room froze. The Hokage's presence alone was enough to silence even the loudest civilian voices. He didn't sit immediately. He stood, gaze sweeping the chamber like a blade. Councilwoman Haruno opened her mouth. She never finished. Killing intent rolled across the room, not lethal, but crushing. Civilians gasped. Elders stiffened. Even seasoned Jonin felt sweat bead at their temples. I was not informed of this meeting, Hiruzen said, voice deceptively mild. So I will ask once. Why is my authority being bypassed? Homura tried to salvage it. We were concerned about the boy's condition and you gave orders to Anbu, Hiruzen interrupted. Silence. That, he continued, eyes hardening, is treason. The word landed like a hammer. He let it hang just long enough. I will be lenient, once, the Hokage said. But understand this clearly. Any attempt to command my shinobi again without authorization will result in arrests. No exceptions. Reluctant acknowledgements echoed through the chamber. Then came the real venom. Why train him? A councilman sneered. Why waste resources on the demon child instead of your own clan? Izumi spoke before Hiruzen could. Watch your words, she said flatly. Naruto-kun has more potential than I did at his age. He has no clan backing him. And because I choose to. She paused. And frankly, because I can. Even Fugaku said nothing. End flashback. The memory faded as Naruto stood in the academy courtyard, the noise of children and parents washing over him. He exhaled slowly. They tried to control me, he thought. Tried to decide my life without asking. Across the yard, the same eyes from earlier still watched him. Naruto met the gaze. This time, he didn't smile. Something was coming. He could feel it. Like the moment before a storm breaks, when the air goes still and every instinct screams to brace. And somewhere deep inside, something ancient and patient leaned forward, waiting to see who would move first. The insult lingered in the chamber like rot. How could you prefer that demon brat to your own brother? The councilman sneered, jowls trembling with indignation. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Naruto tilted his head, genuinely curious. Hey, Gigi, he said, looking up at the Hokage with wide, innocent eyes. Didn't you say there was a law about calling me that? The room froze. Several members of the Shinobi Council coughed to hide smirks. A few elders paled. Sarutobi Hiruzen's pipe clicked softly as he set it down. His expression softened, almost fond. You are absolutely right, Naruto-kun, he said pleasantly. Then his voice sharpened. Anbu. Two masked figures appeared instantly. Escort Councilman Takeda to T and I. Ibiki will handle the rest until sentencing. The man didn't even get to protest before he vanished in a blur of movement. Silence followed. Well, Hiruzen continued lightly, as if nothing unusual had happened. Is there anything else? Shibi Aburame stepped forward, hands tucked into his coat sleeves. I have a question, Hokage-sama. Uchiha Itachi's statement was specific, claiming Naruto possesses greater potential than anyone else. That is not something said lightly. Hiruzen nodded once. A fair question. But before we continue, civilian and elder councils, you are dismissed. This discussion no longer concerns you. Grumbling followed, but none dared defy the order. As they were ushered out, an Anbu leaned in to whisper at the Hokage's ear. Or rather, pretended to. Fugaku-san, Hiruzen said, turning smoothly, the Anbu commander requests your immediate assistance regarding security for the upcoming Kumo guest. Urgent. Fugaku's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. Still, he bowed stiffly and departed. The moment the doors closed, seals flared to life across the chamber: privacy, sound suppression, chakra masking. Shikaku Nara sighed loudly. You didn't need an excuse. You just wanted him gone. Troublesome. Naruto leaned toward him. I thought Nara were supposed to be smart. That was kinda obvious. Laughter rippled through the room. Sume Inuzuka barked openly. Choza and Inoichi didn't bother hiding it. Shikaku slumped. This is why I hate meetings. Hiruzen cleared his throat. Now then, as to why Itachi believes Naruto-kun has exceptional potential, it is quite simple. Itachi spoke before the Hokage could continue. Naruto possesses chakra reserves that rival elite Jonin. More importantly, his control is unusually refined. That did it. Murmurs erupted. Jinchuriki were infamous for poor control. Hiyashi Hyuga's eyes narrowed sharply as realization struck. Then he must be connected to the Senju, or the Hyuga, Hiyashi said carefully. Hiruzen stared at him. Impressive deduction. May I ask how you concluded that? Naruto raised a hand cheerfully. I'll answer. I'm Senju, from my mom's side. Several clan heads stiffened. You know your mother? Sume asked, incredulous. Yeah, Naruto said simply. Only one Uzumaki lived here back then. That explanation satisfied most, until Shibi tilted his head. And your lineage within the Senju? Hiruzen exhaled slowly. Very well. Naruto-kun is the great-grandson of Senju Hashirama, the Shodai Hokage. Shock slammed through the room. A direct descendant of the first. Whispers followed, but none challenged it. The meeting ended shortly after, each clan head leaving with heavy thoughts. Naruto walked out last, hands in his pockets. Above the Hokage monument, stone faces watched silently. And deep beneath them, something ancient stirred, roots stretching, awakening to the return of blood long thought lost. Far away, beyond Fire Country's borders, a pair of eyes opened. And smiled. Flashback end. The present snapped back into place like a blade sliding into its sheath. Naruto stood near the academy gates, the morning noise washing over him, children laughing, parents giving last-minute advice, clan heads watching with careful eyes. For once, the stairs didn't feel as heavy. Or maybe he had simply grown past them. He scanned the crowd and quickly found who he was looking for. Izumi stood a short distance away with her family. Seeing them together, Naruto couldn't help but notice the resemblance. Sayuri really did look like a smaller, softer version of her sister, and Makoto carried the same gentle strength Izumi showed when she thought no one was watching. Naruto jogged over, stopping a few steps away. Hey, sensei, he called cheerfully. Here to see your brother and sister off? Izumi turned, surprise flickering into a smile. His eyes were bright blue again. No trace of the power hidden beneath them unless one knew how to look. Good morning, Naruto-kun, she said warmly. Still feeling the effects of last night's training? Naruto grinned, thumping his chest. Not a chance. I'm ready to dominate the academy, Datbeo. Izumi chuckled softly. Confidence is good. Overconfidence is dangerous, but I suppose you've earned some of it. Her siblings had been staring openly. Sasuke scowled first, impatience written all over his face. Itachi ni, who is this guy? Why are you talking to him? And why is he calling you sensei? Sayuri tilted her head, curious but polite. Anyo, is he your student? Izumi nodded calmly. Yes. His name is Naruto. Naruto waved. Nice to meet you. Most children would have been cautious. Naruto wasn't. He looked Sasuke up and down, head tilting slightly. Huh, you're loud. And kinda angry. Also, not as impressive as you think you are. The air went still. Sayuri gasped softly. Sasuke's face flushed red. Makoto stiffened, while Fugaku's gaze sharpened dangerously. But your sister? Naruto continued, turning to Sayuri with a friendly smile. She's got better balance and a cleaner chakra flow. Way more potential. Sayuri's cheeks turned pink instantly. Fugaku stepped forward, voice cold. Who do you think you are, speaking about my children like that? And since when do boys get lectured by other boys about strength? Men are naturally superior. Naruto didn't flinch. 1, he said calmly, raising a finger, I'm not lecturing. I'm observing. 2, that idea is something weak men made up to feel important. And 3, his gaze flicked briefly to Fugaku, sharp and knowing, chakra doesn't care about pride. Hers is stronger and more stable. That's just fact. Silence. Fugaku's jaw tightened as realization crept in. Makoto felt an unexpected surge of approval. Sasuke trembled with fury. Sayuri stared at Naruto like he'd just said something no one else ever dared. Sasuke snapped. "Who are you anyway?" Izumi answered before Naruto could. "He is my student." That landed harder than any insult. Sasuke froze. "Then why aren't you teaching me?" Izumi's voice softened, but her words did not. "Because Naruto listens. He reflects. And he treats others with respect. You still have work to do." Sasuke had no response. Naruto stepped back with a grin. "See you in class, Sayuri-chan," he called, already turning away. Sayuri managed a small wave, still blushing. Shinobi Academy, classroom. Amino Uruka stood at the front of the room, trying not to let the weight of the moment show. "Clan heirs. All of them. Don't mess this up. Uchiha Sasuke. HN. Uchiha Sayuri. Here, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto shot to his feet. "I'm gonna rock this class." Uruka blinked, then smiled despite himself. So that's him. He doesn't feel like a monster. Behind him, Mizuki's smile was sharp and thin. "There you are, demon." Uruka clapped his hands. "All right, first day, written assessment, then target practice, then light sparring. This will help us understand everyone's starting level." Groans echoed through the room. Tests were handed out. Mizuki lingered just long enough at Naruto's desk, fingers brushing the paper as he slipped a subtle genjutsu into place. Naruto frowned, not in confusion, but amusement. "That's sloppy." He raised his hand. "Uruka-sensei? My test looks kinda wobbly." Uruka walked over, took one look, and his expression darkened. He glanced at Mizuki, who suddenly found the floor fascinating. "I see," Uruka said evenly. "Here, try this one instead." Naruto accepted the new paper with a grin and flipped it over. The academy had begun, and somewhere deep within Naruto, beneath seals, bloodlines, and legacy, something ancient watched quietly. Waiting, Naruto stared down at the paper, resisting the urge to laugh. "Seriously?" he thought. "How many Hokage have there been? That's barely even a question." He skimmed ahead, expecting a trick. None came. The questions were straightforward: history, basic theory, village structure. The only one that made him pause was the section detailing the specialties and defining traits of the first through fourth Hokage. Even then, it wasn't difficult. 3 of them were family by blood, and the 4th had been a presence in his life even before Naruto understood what that meant. He finished quickly. Too quickly. 5 minutes after the test had begun, Naruto stood, walked to the front, and placed the paper on Uruka's desk. Uruka blinked, surprised, but took it anyway and immediately began reading. Naruto turned back toward his seat, and noticed the boy beside him standing up as well, test in hand. Spiky hair tied back, posture lazy, eyes half-lidded like the world itself was exhausting. Naruto waited for him to return and leaned over slightly. "Hey," he whispered. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto. What's your name?" The boy sighed as if the act of speaking cost him effort. "Nara Shikamaru." Naruto grinned. "That test was kinda pointless, huh?" Shikamaru smirked faintly. "Troublesome waste of time." Without another word, he folded his arms on the desk and dropped his head onto them. "I'm gonna nap," he muttered. Naruto blinked, then sweat dropped. "Huh, he's interesting." With nothing else to do, Naruto leaned back in his chair and let his gaze wander. It landed on Sayuri. She sat a few rows ahead, completely focused, dark hair falling just past her shoulders as she worked through the test. There was a quiet intensity to her, nothing like Sasuke's loud arrogance. Naruto noticed the crest on the back of her high-collared shirt and snorted softly. She's already passed the coming-of-age test, and he hasn't. That thought amused him more than it probably should have. As time dragged on, Naruto found his attention drifting back to her again and again. It wasn't just her appearance, though she was undeniably pretty, but the way she carried herself. Calm, thoughtful, unassuming. Sayuri, for her part, was very aware of his gaze. At first it made her nervous. Then, flattered. He doesn't look at people like they're beneath him, she realized. And Nate-chan trains him. That alone made him different. When she finally finished, she handed in her test and turned to head back to her seat. Her eyes flicked toward the back row, and she noticed the empty chair beside Naruto. After a brief hesitation, she took it. She sat down carefully, hands folded in her lap, heart beating just a little faster. Naruto turned, surprised, and smiled. Sayuri inhaled, steadied herself, and spoke. Hi. I don't think we really introduced ourselves earlier. I'm Uchiha Sayuri. She hesitated, then added softly, I wanted to thank you for earlier. Naruto tilted his head. For what? For sticking up for me. He shrugged easily. No big deal, Sayuri-chan. I don't like seeing people get talked down to, especially when they don't deserve it. The suffix made her cheeks warm instantly. Before she could respond, her thoughts scattered when she realized he was still talking. And, sorry if this is sudden, but would you want to train with me sometime? With Itachi-sensei. Sayuri blinked. Really? He usually says he's busy, for me and Sasuke. There was a hint of hurt there she hadn't meant to let slip. Naruto waved it off. Nah, that's just cause he doesn't want to deal with Sasuke. Trust me, he'll train you. Sayuri looked at him, surprised, then relieved. Oh, then, I'd like that. When? How about after school? Naruto said. You can come see our training ground. Her smile bloomed, genuine and bright. I'd love to. At that moment, Iruka stood and clapped his hands. Alright, everyone, tests are graded. Results will be announced after taijutsu evaluations. Groans rippled through the class. Next up, Iruka continued, we're heading to the target range. Kunai and shuriken accuracy. Chairs scraped back as students stood. Naruto rose with a grin, glancing once more at Sayuri. This was only the beginning. And somewhere in the crowd, watching, measuring, waiting, forces far older than the academy walls were already taking notice. Naruto didn't slow down until the academy was well behind them. Sayuri barely had time to react before she found herself being pulled along, the world blurring as Naruto weaved through the village streets with effortless confidence. Her initial surprise melted into laughter as she struggled to keep pace. Naruto, slow down, she protested, though there was no real anger in her voice. He glanced back, eyes bright. Sorry, today was awesome, and I really want to show you. That earned a small smile from her. She tightened her grip instead of letting go. They cut away from the main road, past familiar training fields and into quieter territory where fewer civilians wandered. The sounds of Konoha softened, less chatter, more wind through leaves. Naruto finally slowed near a rocky outcropping hidden behind dense trees. Sayuri caught her breath, looking around. This isn't a normal training ground. Naruto grinned. Nope, that's kinda the point. He led her forward, slipping behind the rocks and toward a narrow path that looked more like an animal trail than anything meant for shinobi. Sayuri followed, senses alert now, Sharingan itching to activate out of instinct. But Naruto's calm confidence reassured her. They stopped before what looked like nothing more than a curtain of water spilling down a stone wall. Sayuri blinked. A waterfall? Naruto nodded. Watch. Without hesitation, he stepped straight through. Sayuri gasped, and then hurried after him. The world shifted. Behind the waterfall was a cavern lit by softly glowing seals embedded into the stone. The air felt different, dense, old, humming faintly with chakra. Sayuri froze, eyes widening as she took in the space beyond. Training posts scarred by countless impacts. A stream cutting through polished stone. Sealed walls etched with symbols she recognized from ancient Uchiha texts, and many she didn't. This place, she whispered. It's incredible. Naruto scratched the back of his head, suddenly a little shy. Yeah, my family left it for me. I train here with Izumi-sensei and Rin-chan. Sayuri turned to him slowly. You weren't exaggerating earlier, were you? Nope, she exhaled, a mix of awe and excitement stirring in her chest. I've never seen anything like this. Father would lose his mind if he knew a place like this existed. Naruto's expression shifted, still cheerful, but sharper around the edges. That's why it's a secret. She nodded immediately. I won't tell anyone, I promise. He studied her for a moment, then smiled again. I knew you'd say that. They moved deeper into the cavern, Naruto pointing out different areas, the physical training zone, the river where chakra control drills happened, the sealed doors to the library beyond. Sayuri stopped in front of the training posts, eyes gleaming. So, do we train now? Naruto laughed. That's what I brought you here for. He took a step back, settling into a relaxed stance, not academy basic, but something far more refined. Just don't hold back because I'm your classmate, he added lightly. I won't. Sayuri hesitated only a second before mirroring him. Her posture sharpened, eyes focused. I wouldn't dare. The air between them tightened. Before either could move, the seals along the cavern wall pulsed once, subtle but unmistakable. Naruto stiffened. That's not supposed to happen, he muttered. Sayuri felt it too now, a pressure crawling up her spine, ancient and watchful. From deep within the cavern, beyond the sealed library doors, something shifted. And whatever it was, had just noticed them. Deep beneath Konoha, where forgotten seals whispered and ancient power stirred, Naruto Uzumaki took his first real step toward a destiny that would shake the shinobi world. Unaware that something old, intelligent, and very dangerous had just opened its eyes. If you're enjoying this story and want more, faster, darker, and deeper, you can support it on Patreon. Link is in the description box. Your support unlocks early access to chapters, extended and darker arcs, expanded Naruto lore, exclusive Patreon-only content. Thank you for reading. What comes next will reshape everything you know.
That's all for now. If you enjoy them, please like, share, and do comment.